SEC on CBS Game of the Week. Alabama clashing with Arkansas. Tide looking to go to 16-0 against the Razorbacks under Nick Saban. Last season, Alabama beat Arkansas 42-35 to clinch a spot in the SEC championship game. Bryce Young had a career-high 559 yards passing and 5 touchdowns in this game, and picking up where he leaves off there. First quarter, Bryce Young to Kobe Prentice, 47-yard touchdown. Alabama up 7-0. Prentice's first career touchdown for the freshman. Ensuing Alabama possession, Young fakes the pitch. He's in for 6. Up 14-0. Third game with at least 1 passing and a rushing touchdown this season. But then a concerning moment for Bryce Young. Next Alabama possession, rolling right, taken down by Drew Sanders. Falls hard on his throwing shoulder. As you see here, we spotlight it. That does not look good. He'd stay in the game. Next pass attempt over the middle, incomplete, and showing noticeable discomfort on his way to the sideline. Grimacing in pain, right to the injury tent. Slams his helmet down. He'd head for the locker room shortly after. Leaves the game in the second quarter with a shoulder sprain. Nick Saban calling it an AC sprain. More on that in a moment. So in comes Jalen Milroe, redshirt freshman, 4-star quarterback, and he rolls in for 6. Alabama up 21-0. His first career rushing touchdown, would also throw a TD to make it 28-0. Arkansas scored right before the half, but Sam Pittman not through with the Razorbacks' effort, so it's halftime sprints for everyone. Run! Early third, A.J. Green. Not that A.J. Green, but this A.J. Green. He's in for a touchdown. Arkansas down 28-14. So those sprints were working. Then a little trickeration. On the kickoff, Jake Bates recovers his own kick. Perfectly executed. Wow. Here come the Razorbacks. They settle for a field goal to make it 28-17. Then, what is that? Bad snap. Alabama recovers on the 3 there. Kneel and Hibbett, I don't know what that was to James Burnett. That was just miscommunication. So then Arkansas takes advantage. Raheem Sanders in for the touchdown. Arkansas down 28-23 after the missed 2-point conversion. Arkansas scoring 23 unanswered points after trailing 28-0. Crimson Tide need a response. They need a spark. Bryce Young back on the sideline. He's still in his helmet, his pads. Still not playing, though. Ensuing Alabama's possession. 3rd and 15 from their own 20. Milroe. Looking like Michael Vick or Lamar Jackson or Malik Willis. I mean, look at this. What a run by Milroe. Bryce Young's fired up on the sideline. He's like, look at that guy go. Jace McClellan punching in 2 plays later to go up 35-23. Ensuing Alabama possession, Jamir Gibbs, the Georgia Tech transfer, 72-yard touchdown run. Alabama up 42-33. The over hits, and Alabama now covering the 17. Alabama 2 rushes of 70 yards in the last 5 plays. How about a third following an Arkansas field goal to cover the spread? Second play of the next Alabama drive, Gibbs, 76 yards to the house. Alabama up 49-26 after the made extra point and covering. The guy needs a hug. Go to sleep, says Jamir Gibbs. We put you to sleep. 18 carries, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns, a couple of 70-yard runs. He's the 5th Alabama player since 2000 with 200 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, the first since Najee Harris a couple years ago. Nick Saban improves to 16-0 against Arkansas as Alabama head coach. Starts the season 5-0 for the 7th straight year as Alabama wins 49-26. And Alabama covers, and the game goes well over the total of 61. Again, Bryce Young injured in the second quarter. Nick Saban saying it was an AC sprain. Here's what Nick Saban had to say afterwards to our Jenny Dell.
Coach, your Heisman Trophy winner and Bryce Young goes down. The rest of the team steps up. What did you learn about the resiliency of this squad today?
Well, you know what I'd like to talk about is our team. You know, our team just won a game on the road. Wasn't pretty all the time, but they made plays when they had to make them. We love Bryce. Bryce has got a sprained shoulder. You know, hopefully, you know, we'll get some diagnosis on him and see how he goes. But what about the game? What about the team? What about the players that played the game?
Let's talk about that. How would you characterize that win here?
I mean, Jamir Gibbs played great, made some big runs. Quarterback went in the game and made some plays. I mean, the defense, you know, made some plays. We made some horrible mistakes, you know, in special teams. But we overcame it. But there's a lot that we can learn from this game today, and hopefully our team will get better because of it.
Coach, thank you for your time.
All right, so let's talk about the team. Well, the team was great because they're good, and they got guys that can step in like Jalen Milroe, and Jamir Gibbs has himself a day. The Georgia Tech transfer up over 200 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 70 yarders, and that adds up to another win for Alabama. Nick Saban's 16th in a row against Arkansas. As for the update on Bryce Young, we did hear from Nick Saban a little bit after the game. He said that it's not serious, Bryce Young, the injury. This is not serious. He said, quote, we'll have to take it day to day. I think he's okay. Doesn't have a serious injury, end quote. Alabama's got a big game coming up next week at home against Texas A&M. Certainly a grudge match there between Jimbo and Nick Saban. Remember last season, Texas A&M upset Alabama, and then all the NIL drama in the offseason. That's a game that you can see on CBS, the second game of the SEC on CBS doubleheader. Let's get back out to Fayetteville where we welcome in Gary Danielson. Gary, you're a former college and NFL quarterback. What did you see on the play where Bryce Young got injured?
Well, actually, he played very similar to that happened to me in my career. When you reach out your arm, attempt to throw, and then land on an outstretched arm, it kind of pops it up. Sometimes you can get a rotator cuff tear, or maybe if you're lucky, you just get a sprained shoulder. Let's hope for a sprained shoulder, because a rotator cuff, even a minor tear or a bruising, will take longer to come back from. Either way, it stunned Alabama, and they really never came out of it. And it looked like Arkansas wasn't going to overtake them until Milroe ran the 3rd and 15 75-yard or 77-yard run, whatever it was.
Yeah, how about that play, Gary, to spark the offense? Because as you mentioned, Arkansas had made it a 5-point game, and things are looking like, hey, we're on the road, our backs are against the wall, and maybe the Razorbacks take control. But Jalen Milroe with a game-breaking play.
Yeah, I think that's where, Nick Saban's overall philosophy as a coach. He really preaches just play the next play. I mean, you hear it. You go watch practice, he'll just tell the guys, what is it? You made a bad play. Forget it. Move on. And that's what his team really did. I mean, they were stunned. They were staggered by the Bryce Young injury. Everything was so easy when he was in there. The Arkansas defensive secondary that really has trouble covering one-on-one with a competent quarterback really was neutralized. They became part of the action because Alabama needed to run the ball with Jalen Milroe in there, and it was a different football game. 3rd and 15. If you're Barry Odom, the defensive coordinator for Arkansas, you get them 3rd and 15. You put your best player, a spy on their quarterback who's struggling to throw the ball, and they take it 77 yards on you. That's a tough one to live with. Alabama makes the play, and from then on, it looked like no contest.
Yeah, it was then Jamir Gibbs with a pair of 70-yard touchdown runs of his own. Gary, is this the next great Alabama running back, Jamir Gibbs?
He's pretty good. There's no doubt about that. He's a little different, more like the Kenyon Drake. I used that analysis of him. Alvin Kamara, who started out his career here at Alabama, then transfers to Tennessee, and all-pro player for the New Orleans Saints right now. He's a dual threat. He's comfortable playing in the slot, wide receiver, screen passes, and then he has that burst. You give him some space, he can take it to the house. The transfer portal has been good to Alabama. There's no doubt about that.
You're exactly right about that. And they get another win over Arkansas, 16 in a row under Nick Saban. We will see you next week in Tuscaloosa for Texas A&M and Alabama. Gary, appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
How about this? SEC on CBS doubleheader next week. Top-ranked Georgia clashing with Auburn in another edition of the Deep South's oldest rivalry. And then nightcap, as I mentioned, the definition of a grudge match. Nick Saban and the Tide facing Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies on CBS and streaming live on Paramount+. All right, back here with two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and B-Mac. We were talking about the fact that Jalen Milroe comes into the game and sparks the offense on a 3rd and 15 play. And if you're standing on the sideline, you're playing defense, and you're watching the offense there, and you just made it, the game was just 28-23. You're like, man, Arkansas is coming back here. And then Jalen Milroe, your quarterback who steps in, makes a play. What are you thinking there on the sideline if you're like Will Anderson?
That was a back-breaking like play momentum, everything was in their favor. The crowd was back involved in the game. You talked about it, only being down 5. And it's 3rd and 15, Hakeem. It's 3rd and 15. So knowing you're going against a backup quarterback, 3rd and 15, you have to like your chances defensively. But get this, Jalen didn't make a play with his arm. He made one with his legs. And not only did he converted the first down, he scored 7. That was I don't want to say that was the one play that led to Alabama being able to prevail and win this ball game, but that was probably the biggest play in the second half because, like you said, Arkansas found a way to fight back. I mean, they got the onside kick. They were scoring fast. The defense seemed to be more energetic. The fans were back involved, and you're playing against a backup quarterback that lacks experience. So if you're able to get that stop, seeing how well Arkansas offense was able to perform at that time, it's safe to say they would have probably drove down and put some type of points on the scoreboard. So that play alone was basically the final blow that Alabama needed to land to be able to win this ball game.
Yeah, I mean, you and I always talk about this all the time, right? A 5-star prospect goes out at Alabama injured or goes to the NFL draft. They replace him with another 4 or 5-star. Jalen Milroe, a 4-star prospect out of Texas, elected not to go to Texas. He goes to Alabama, and now he gets to step in and make a play. Look, we know it's a shoulder sprain. That's what Nick Saban said postgame. Would you be cautious next week against Texas A&M? Would you hold Bryce Young out of that game, or would you wait to see how he feels throughout the week?
Yeah, I think it's a wait-and-see process. Because initially he was in a lot of pain, right? We saw that. We all saw that. But then gradually he seemed to be feeling better because he kept his uniform on, he had his helmet on, and he was, he was animated on the sideline. He was cheering, he was jumping. So he seemed to be able to, he started feeling better, it seems like, the more the game went on in the second half. So I think you wait and see. Let's see how he feels tomorrow, definitely. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is not like it's a short week for them. They have a Thursday night ball game, so they won't play again for another 7 days. So let's see exactly how he is. And I think the deciding factor for me, if I was coaching Bryce Young, if he's not able to make big time throws by Friday, then let's go ahead and, by Thursday, let's go ahead and sit him out.
Yeah, because I mean, look, the schedule's right here, right? They have Texas A&M and then Tennessee. And look, I'm not trying to overlook the Aggies, but they're not as good as we thought they were going to be. They're good. They're still a good football program, still a good football team. Jimbo's still trying to figure some things out there. But if that's the week where you say, okay, Bryce, let's back off. We'll have Jalen Milroe start this game, and maybe if things get a little wacky, you're going to go in, but we're going to try to get you a day off. It's sort of like a Major League Baseball player who's hitting, want to take. They like Aaron Judge. He's trying to hit home runs every day. We need to give you a day off. Let's take a break, and we'll get you ready for Tennessee. Because to me, that's the game on the schedule that we're circling right now in terms of what the elite game is, at least in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're kind of overlooking, even though you say you're not overlooking A&M. Let's keep it real. You're basically telling all of us Alabama can beat A&M with their backup quarterback. And
can't they? They just beat Arkansas.
They should be able
Arkansas
to.
Just beat Texas A&M.
Wait a minute. The thing we have to remember, everyone watching us, and you as well, Hakeem, Jalen Milroe jumped into this ball game with a 21-point lead, if I'm not mistaken, right? It was 28-7. So he jumped into this situation with no pressure. Just don't screw it up. And you're in a good situation based on the talent that is surrounding him. So I understand what you're saying based on how bad we've seen A&M as of late, especially today. But putting a young kid into that moment, knowing how big of a ball game that is, especially what happened last year, you never know how he could handle that when it's 0-0 and we're starting in the first quarter. But we will see, right? Because if Bryce Young is not good to go, you don't want to risk one game for the entire season, knowing what you have at stake. So you don't want to put him in harm's way and allow something to happen to him where he could be out for an extended period of time. So if he's not ready to go, then of course, it was good to see Milroe jump in the game and he was able to do what he did. But if Bryce Young is ready and they clear him, he's going to plplay.
Texas A&M lost today, right? 42-24 to Mississippi State. I am a little bit justified in saying that I'm overlooking Texas A&M.
No question.
A little bit.
But
I'm a little bit justified. Like, I'm not. Mississippi State's a good team, but come on.
Anything can happen. You know what I mean? And speaking of that, we've seen upset after upset. Almost seems to be every week. So for Alabama, the thing about Alabama, they believe in perfection year in and year out because they're in a situation, especially in the conference, even though the SEC in totality is not super strong, but they don't want to leave anything on the table. They try to win every ball game possible. And anything can happen because the thing about Alabama as well, Hakeem, anytime an opposing team is playing against Alabama, it's like a championship game. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. So you will get that opposing team's best effort, at least for a half or so. And who knows what can happen when you don't have your starting quarterback.
Yeah, you're going to be there next week for that game, too. So I'm looking forward to that beatdown by Alabama in there at home against Texas A&M. We'll see what happens. I think the look-ahead number is like 21, the spread. Yeah. So, and it might be 23.5. Obviously, depending on the quarterback, because if it's Bryce Young, the spread, Jalen Milroe, the spread might be different. But it's going to be somewhere, I would say, probably in the 20s. The kid I really want to talk about here is Jamir Gibbs. I mean, 72-yard touchdown run, 76-yard touchdown run. I mean, this kid looked like, and I asked Gary this, like the next great Alabama running back because they just churn guys out.
Yeah, and he's a different style of back than what we've seen in years past from Alabama. He is a guy that is a burner. He is football speed. I don't know how fast he is on the track, but football-wise, he is a 4.3 type guy. We haven't seen that type of speed in the backfield for Alabama in a long, long time. Look at these guys right here. Derrick Henry, Najee Harris, Brian Robertson from a year ago. Bigger backs that were shifty when need be, but more power than anything. Jamir has shiftiness, and he has speed. So given that to that type of offense, especially when you have Bryce Young in the lineup, he makes their offense that much deadlier based on his big play ability, and we saw that. So he gives them a different element than what we've seen in years past based on the successful backs that have gone on to play out of Alabama and, of course, get an opportunity to play in the National Football League.
Well, what's different here is that Jamir Gibbs was a transfer from Georgia Tech, right? I mean, this is a kid that's from Georgia, one of the top prospects in all of Georgia. He was the offense for the Yellow Jackets last season. Transfers to Alabama this season and gets a chance to step right in with Brian Robinson going to the NFL. And this is kind of sort of going on the whole idea of NIL, right? Name, image, and likeness, and Nick Saban competing with Jimbo Fisher for the #1 class. And now I'm sure Nick Saban feels pretty good. He's going to walk back home to Tuscaloosa, and he's got Jamir. Oh, you see Jamir Gibbs? I got him to transfer from Georgia Tech. You see he ran for 200 yards last week? What do you got, Jimbo? Like this is fuel to the fire here for this feud because I'm here for it.
And that's the thing about the transfer portal. I don't know if there's another team that has really benefited from the transfer portal like Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. They got Jamir Gibbs this year. Remember who they had last year in the transfer portal? Jamison Williams. Remember what type of beast he was for their offense. You know what I mean? So we're starting to see Alabama, especially on the offensive side, some of their best players transferred into the program and have really benefited from the opportunity because Jamir Gibbs was a beast at Georgia Tech, but the light wasn't really on him like that because he played for Georgia Tech, a team that clearly is not a good team. But you put that type of talent with this team that he's currently on, now the entire nation is now on notice that Gibbs is a beast of a running back. A guy, he's a guy that if he is not careful, he might find himself getting drafted extremely high next year.
Yeah, he had 70 touchdowns in his high school career. I mean, that's pretty impressive in the state of Georgia, and you know how good the state of Georgia is in turning out football talent. All right, so we just got word from Nick Saban. It's an AC sprain here, AC joint sprain for Bryce Young. So does that tell you anything? It's a little more specific than just a shoulder sprain.
I had an AC sprain, I think maybe my second or third year in the league, and the soreness the day after is really tough. That's the thing. And I didn't miss any games, but of course I wasn't throwing the football as well. You know what I mean? So two things you have to factor in regards to having an AC sprain and you're a quarterback. Is there any discomfort when you're throwing the football? And what happens the one time you get tackled and you fall on that injured shoulder?
Yeah.
Right? So that's something that you have to be mindful of with Bryce Young moving forward. Is there any discomfort in throwing passes? And we're not talking about little dink and dunk like passes, Hakeem. We know they like to take shots. You saw that today. They benefited in today's matchup, taking shots down the football field. They're an explosive-like offense. Can he do that in a consistent way? And then, of course, what happens when he falls? You know, when you play a game of football, you can't determine how you fall and when you fall. You just fall. So those are the things you have to monitor.
Yeah. Nick Saban said we'll have to take it day to day. I think he's okay. Doesn't have a serious injury. So certainly what you want to hear post-game if you're an Alabama fan and if you're Bryce Young, the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, going into their big matchup against Texas A&M, a game that you can see next week on CBS. But a big win for Alabama as Jalen Milroe comes in, sparks the offense, and a heck of a day for Jamir Gibbs running the football, up over 200 yards in another win over Arkansas, 16 in a row over the Razorbacks. B-Mac breaking down for us here on CBS Sports HQ. B-Mac, thanks. And hey, check out B-Mac on his podcast, All Things Covered, former LSU star and Vikings corner Patrick Peterson. You can see what they got to say. They got the biggest names from sports and the entertainment worlds, All Things Covered. Download and subscribe today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.